My name is Rob Heck. I'm from the Hawaii Pacific Export Council as a board member there, and I coordinate these seminars for HPEC. We do that because we have a grant from DBET that allows us to put on these seminars. And the grant in turn to DBET comes from SBA in Washington, so we'd like to thank them. Also, we'd like to thank FTZ, the Foreign Trade Zone here, for allowing us to use this wonderful facility. Of course, our partners at Invest.Hawaii, who are actually running today's seminar on scaling up operations. So I have a quick disclaimer that I would like everybody to understand that we have three audiences really for these seminars. One is all of you all. Another one is the online seminar, so the neighbor islands are streaming in here. And then the third audience is we're videotaping this. And so the disclaimer is that any questions you ask become part of the public forum, and the answers to those questions become part of the public forum. It's possible, although unlikely, your face could wind up on the video too, in case you were in front of the camera. So just, that's our quick disclaimer. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Jamie Lum from DBET, who will give a brief introduction and remind everybody about the wonderful HiSTEP program.
Thank you, Rob. Aloha and good morning, everyone. Thank you all for being here. As Rob has already indicated to you, this is part of our what we call our HiSTEP program, the Hawaii State Trade Expansion Program. With funding from the SBA, we are able to put together this program that's intended for Hawaii companies for those that are not exporting, to think about that and to expand your business by looking at international markets, and for those that are already exporting, to expand what you are already doing. So as part of the program, we have our export readiness training, of which these seminars are a part of that. We have a couple more scheduled going forward in April and May and June. So you can always find whatever we're doing on our Invest.Hawaii.Gov website under the exporting tab. Anything on HiSTEP we have updated there. So we have our export readiness, we have training, and we also have our business advising part of it. And we work with our partners here with HPEC, who puts on the seminars, and they also do business advising. Our Small Business Development Center, Joe and Lori are here, with Innovate Hawaii and with the Patsy Mink Center. They are all part of our business advising, and we've been encouraging companies to really take advantage of that. It's like getting free business consulting. So please take advantage of that. Another component of our program are the Hawaii pavilions that we do, where we go into trade shows. We purchase space, we pay for the build out, we assess a small fee to companies to be part of that. But once we decide what shows we're going into, we start to recruit companies to be part of that. We do have the Tokyo International Gift Show that's coming up in September. We're also doing the Outdoor Retailer in July. So if you're interested in any of those shows, again, please go to our website and check that out. I also have business cards out there. If you are interested, you can contact me directly. The last part of our program, of which we've already completed for 2018, is our company assistance, where companies can put in an application. It is awarded on a competitive basis, but basically it's just a small amount. It's to help incentivize you to carry out an export strategy that you've already put together and submitted as part of your application. So just in a nutshell, that's what the HiSTEP program is about. Again, Invest.Hawaii.Gov under the exporting tab gives you all of the information, or you can contact me. So thank you again for being here, and thank you to all of our partners.
Thank you, Jamie. Before we jump into the PowerPoint presentation, just very briefly, I'll keep this website open because the online audience can see these websites that are up here. This is Invest.Hawaii.Gov that Jamie was just talking about. Here's the Innovate Hawaii website at htdc.org. Very quickly, here's the Hawaii Pacific Export Council website at HawaiiExportSupport.com. And then this is the HPEC YouTube channel where you can see all of our past seminars that are recorded here. This seminar that you're attending right now will be on the YouTube channel in roughly a week. And you can also see these videos at the DBET website also. Okay, so let me pass the microphone over to Wayne Lyagan from HTDC Innovate Hawaii.
So I guess the first thing that we want to do is, get an idea of who's in the room today. So that way our speakers know how to craft their answers. And then, it'll also make me think of questions that would relate more to the audience that's present. So maybe Wayne, if you can start in the back, we'll just go around, just say who you are and what you do. Just real brief. We won't put you on camera, so you don't have to be shy.
I'm Tom Sivata from Lahana Jewelry.
Good morning. I'm Laura Hiromatsu from Hawaii Small Business Development Center.
Hi, Sid Miyashiro from American Savings Bank.
Hi, I'm Randy Mao with Cardax Biotech Life Sciences Company.
Good morning. My name is Brian Canavari with BC Frame and Kokua Bikes USA.
Brenda Foster, Chair of HPEC and President and CEO of Foster and Associates.
Good morning, everyone. Joe Burns, Hawaii Small Business Development Center, SBDC.
Hello, Jimmy Louie from Italian Ice.
Hi, I'm Erin Uehara from Shokolea Chocolates.
Jason Kim from Mochi Foods.
Hi, Saxon Sawai from Hawaiian Fuinki.
Hi, good morning. John Flanagan, Bank of Hawaii.
Mayumi Otaki, Business Interpreter.
Aloha, Marlene Hiraoka from DBED.
Taylor Hamai from Trentex Fabrics.
Marcia Yonimori, Trentex Fabrics and Tropical Paper Garden.
I'm Nati Barnett, retired nurse, into research for the feasibility of exporting battery storage for solar energy.
Hi, I'm Ann Pedersen with Camille Elise Confections.
Hi, I'm Yvonne. I'm starting my own clothing company.
Mark Miyahira from Creative Kamaina. We manufacture draperies.
Peter Valide, Ohia Bakery.
Hi, Pat Swanroot, VP Marketing of Hawaii by Design.
Hi, I'm Kusuma from Hawaii by Design.
Barrett Work of Work Arts. We make bamboo bicycles.
I'm Crystal Marcellus of Work Arts Bamboo Bikes, Hawaii.
Lena Conrad with Y&I Business Hui. We have products.
And Rob, do we have people on the neighbor islands also?
Hi, I'm Mia Harry from Mana Apoi and Filter Glasses.
Good morning. Malcolm Yorkston, Hawaiian Rainbow Bees Honey Company.
Morning, Lyle Fujikawa, DBED.
Did we miss somebody in the...
I'm Dorothy Nakaido with Beyond Organic Skincare for sensitive skin.
Did we miss anybody else? Okay.
Yes, Rob, you can go to the next slide. So this is who I am. My name is Wayne Layugan. I'm a project manager with Innovate Hawaii. This is my email if anyone needs to contact me. I also have business cards if you guys prefer something to hold on to. I shrunk my phone number for a reason because it's better to contact me through email, I think. But if you needed to call me and leave a message, my phone number is 808-539-3702. So just some background on myself. I born and raised here in Hawaii, graduated from the University of Hawaii, electrical engineering. I worked for a couple of years in a semiconductor R&D plant. So, through that, I learned a lot of computer-aided design, process optimization, small-scale manufacturing. But after joining Innovate Hawaii, some of the things that I learned is what big manufacturers do. For example, they do a lot of quality management systems, QMS, lean manufacturing, which we'll sort of touch on today a little bit, and then of course continuous improvement. Because if you're not continuously improving, you'll lose your edge in the business world, right? Okay. And then some real quick about Innovate Hawaii. So Innovate Hawaii on the state level, it is part of it's a program of the Hawaii Technology Development Corporation. In the later slides, we'll talk about some of the things that HTDC and Innovate Hawaii offers to help support in your expansion. On the federal level, we're a part of the MEP National Network. MEP is a Manufacturing Extension Partnership. And pretty much the mission of MEP so there's one center in every state and Puerto Rico. And our mission as a center is to help advance U.S. manufacturing. So you can think of it, 3 words that represent what we do is we help companies, create product through product development, which will in turn, create jobs and create opportunities for Hawaii. The next thing is we want to build the manufacturing industry in Hawaii, build awareness around that, to let everyone know that there is manufacturing here. It's real vibrant. It's big, but on a smaller scale. And then the last one is grow. I mean, we want everyone to grow their business. And some of the ways we do this is, again, I mentioned lean manufacturing. This will help grow your bottom line, reducing your cost to operate your business, reducing waste, which we'll cover again in a little bit, and then growing your top line, increase sales, export, which is what the HiSTEP program is about, exporting your product, which will, grow your top line. Rob, you go to the next slide. Yeah. And then today, we're fortunate to have our guest speakers. One of them is still on the way, hopefully. But we'll go down the line. I mean, we have Angie from Sky Dreams, Blaine Uppo from MyCrisp. Wayne is my center director, sitting on the end. He's from Innovate Hawaii. I'll ask him some questions, it's because I can't ask myself questions, but it'll be kind of weird. And then hopefully, if Dylan can make it, Dylan Butterbaugh from Manoa Chocolates is our third speaker. So again, the format for this session, it's really informal. It's more of a Q&A. I think that worked well last year. So if you have any questions, feel free to interrupt us, ask questions. Those of you online, Rob is monitoring the session. If you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand, I think was Rob said, and then ask your question, and Rob will ask it out loud. And then for those of you here, we'll try to repeat speakers. If you could repeat the question, so that way the people online can hear the question also. So let's start, I guess, Angie, ladies first. Maybe tell us about your company, your products, what do you do, your origin story, how you started, and then where you are now.
Hello, everybody. It's on? Yeah. Aloha, everybody. My name is Angie Higa. I am the CEO and designer of Sky Dreams LLC, where we specialize in first-class comfort with travel-related products. I started my business back in 2009. Prior to that, I had 30 years in the banking industry and decided to retire at age 48 to care for my granddaughter during my daughter's military deployment to Afghanistan. And if most of you can remember, of those, we have some bankers here in the audience, but in 2008, it was a really tough time to be in banking, and that's when I actually had left. And at that time, I had no aspiration to actually start my own business. As we know that we were in an economic turmoil, and to start a business during 2008, 2009 would have been a kind of a crazy idea. But being the entrepreneur that I've always been since age 11, and being that creative person, I stepped out of my retirement mode and 6 months later and designed a travel blanket that folds up into a bag. And that was something that I was so passionate about, and it was during a time when the airline business had stopped providing these comfort items on board. So I thought it was a prime opportunity to kind of design something that was unique and different, something that wasn't out there in the market. And I then decided to go ahead and start an online business, and I really focused on something doing that. And been pretty much doing the travel blanket stuff all the way currently, but I wanted to kind of expand my global reach and wanted to give it a try in exporting. And it was a scary thought when I was approached by Milton Kwok, who was formerly with DBED, who approached me back in 2014. He thought it would be a good opportunity for me to sell my products there at the Tokyo Gift Fair. And unaware of how it was to actually do anything on exporting or in that magnitude, I knew that I had to do a lot of research on that. And I was so fortunate to be one of 9 businesses that were chosen to be in an extensive exporting, the business of exporting. And we had learned all aspects about exporting at this 8-month extensive class, seminar. And at that time, that was in 2015, I was encouraged to, well, I thought I had the wherewithal to go ahead and give it a try and do the Tokyo Gift Fair. And I did do the Tokyo Gift Fair in 2015. I knew that I had a lot of my business mentors, exporting mentors who were behind me, encouraging me. And I had felt that I had everything that I knew to kind of take my business to that next level. And it was an excellent opportunity. And I've actually, this year, September, will be my 4th opportunity to participate at the Tokyo Gift Fair. Anything else I need to say?
I think you covered me. We'll ask more questions as we go. Blaine?
Aloha. My name is Blaine Apol, owner of Maui Crisp beef jerky. It's actually beef chips. What it is really thinly sliced beef, marinated and dehydrated to a chip-like texture. This all came about. Me and my wife took over a gas station, managed a gas station for my father-in-law back in 2014. And that was a couple years after Costco had came into Maui and basically took about 30% of the gas sales from the gas stations. It was hard we needed to find something new, something different to make money for the gas station. And started off with pipi kaula. Pipi kaula is like a Hawaiian version of beef jerky. Started with that, hand slicing it with a knife, and a couple times the edges came out thin, and those pieces came out crispy, and I said, let's try that again. So did more research and development from there. Eventually bought a slicer, and turned our little storage room in the back of our gas station, which is maybe 8 by 8 or 10 by 8 maybe. It's really small. Bought a microwave-sized dehydrator, which would take about 10 hours to make maybe 5 bags of jerky, and would give samples at the gas station, and it was a hit. It's never stopped, and so we said, okay, let's buy 3 more of those small ones, and that came in and went real quick, and to now. That was 2014 we started, and now we just built a brand new facility up in Wailuku, full-on production plant, USDA inspected. When we first started, it was about, I think we sold about 25 bags a month, and I think we're in excess of over 10,000 a month now out of our facility. It's been a wild ride. It's constantly was catching up with everything, and with the help of the SBDC and HTDC guys, I mean, it's truly a blessing. It's been from making it myself with a manual slicer to where we're at now, and finding employees and creating food safety plans. I had no idea of any of that stuff. I was a mechanic before I started the gas station, so it was a total culture shock. But we're looking into getting out there in the mainland. We did our last year. We spent the time solidifying our trademarks in Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and Japan. However, Japan is one of the. There's one hard thing to get in there with the beef. Back in 2003, I believe there's a mad cow disease. So, we might have to make it there or use beef from another country. I'm not too sure, but that was my original goal, was to get. I wasn't even thinking about going to the mainland. I just wanted to go to Japan and sell the products there. But yeah, other than that was kind of my story, where it started and what it is. Thank you.
Good. I mean, Wayne, do you want to introduce yourself? The other Wayne, by the way.
Hi, good morning. My name is Wayne Inouye. I've been with Innovate Hawaii for going on 12 years, helping small to medium-sized manufacturers here in Hawaii. My previous life was in Silicon Valley in San Jose. I did technical marketing and sales for a semiconductor company similar to Wayne for about 13 years, and decided to move home 2006 to take care of parents, and then ended up working with the state of Hawaii to help manufacturers. So I've seen a lot in the last 12 years. And again, we're all very fortunate that we live in Hawaii. We have very creative people. We have a very good-hearted society, right? Hawaii. We all love Hawaii. We all love what's made in Hawaii. And we're very fortunate, again, that we have a group of individuals, especially because doing manufacturing in Hawaii is tough. I'll give you that. It's not easy, right? We're in the middle of the ocean. You pay for high energy. You pay for high transportation. You pay a lot more than our friends out on the West Coast. So all of you here as manufacturers, I applaud you as being manufacturers, because it is a tough thing to do. But in the 12 years, we've seen a lot of great companies grow. We've seen a lot of home runs from small businesses that are doing cookies to chocolates to beef jerky. Right now we have a booming beer. You like beer? We have breweries all over popping up. So we are, as a industry, putting manufacturing back on the map. Textile at one point in the early 80s was something that was a booming industry. And unfortunately, it's been a real tough road, especially for people like for Angie that's doing textile. Fashion is tough. Fashion is one of the toughest things to do here in Hawaii for many reasons. And for you guys that are nodding your head, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about, right? You have workforce issues. You have a lot of issues that some of our other friends doing manufacturing don't see. And we'll talk about some of that. But again, I applaud you all as manufacturers, because it is tough to do manufacturing in Hawaii. But that's what makes our job, Wayne and I and our partners, the gratification that we get helping you to succeed, to build, to grow. And, for us to see companies start from the very first time they walk in the door saying, I don't have a business plan, to now exporting, that's the gratification that I personally get. And I think that's what we get as a group to help companies grow. So we've seen a lot of things. There's going to be a lot of information today. But again, please feel free, and we'll go through and identify our partners. But you're not in here alone, right? You have your neighbors. You have people that are doing similar things. And one of the things that we stress is make friends, right? Regarding, you may be doing similar products, but one day you're going to need to tap on your friends. You're going to need to tap on your partners for questions. And it's Hawaii, right? We all try to help each other, even though we're kind of doing the same thing. So again, one of the things I stress is, network, meet other people, meet the resources that are available here with the state. And, again, thank you for coming. And we have a lot of information, and turn it back to Wayne.
All right, thanks, Wayne. Rob, you can go over to the next slide, please. So this is pretty much our agenda for today. Real simple. We're going to talk about, when you get a big order, how do you fulfill it, or how will you fulfill it? So we're hoping that the speakers can share some of the things they learned going through this, some of the things that they're planning, or what worked, what didn't work, in terms of the whole process. Supply chain, money, finances, equipment, and workforce. I mean, the way I remember this is the 4 M's: materials, money, machinery, and manpower. So if you want something simpler, 4Ms, or you remember it this way. But as a manufacturer, if you decided to become active in exporting or simply increasing your production, either in response to inquiries or as part of your expansion strategy, you will need to think about how to scale up your people, your operations, your logistics, and finances. So again, 4Ms, right? Materials, money, machinery, manpower. So the first thing, Rob, you can go to the next slide, please. First thing we'll talk about is supply chain. I think for Blaine, his supply of beef is one thing that maybe he could probably discuss, because getting the right product to the right customer on time and to a designated quality standard is one of the major challenges that any company will face whenever they're increasing production or exporting. Because if you think about it, small batches, starting off in your kitchen, for example, cooking example, using pots and pans, you have a lot of control. But once you start increasing the size, like you're going from 1 pan to like 100 gallons. There's a lot more things that you have to think about, because there's more complexity. For example, things that you wouldn't have to worry about, your product getting crushed at the bottom because you're only working small batches as opposed to a 100-pound batch. So those type of things. I mean, for growers or for people that have raw material that grows in the ground, some of the things you have to think about is the seasonality of your raw material. Will you be able to get your raw materials year-round? Because customers don't only order during season, right? So maybe Blaine, if you can talk about your supply chain, how you went about securing your beef or even your other raw materials for your ingredients.
So right now, well, we started off going to Costco for our meat. I think at the gas station we'd do maybe 400 pounds of beef a week. I think now we're closer to 2,000, a little over 2,000 pounds a week. In the beginning, we were using Maui cattle beef. It's a little more expensive, but I figure, try to use locally sourced products here. But we would get maybe 60 pounds of beef a week, and there's no way we would have be able to wait for them. So we'd go to Costco. They would bring it in by the pallets, I would say, every week, and because they took our gas away, so I don't want to go back to Costco and give them money. So we were trying to work with different other local suppliers. Now we work with Valley Produce and HFM to source our meat from. Going from making 1 gallon batch of sauce to 30 gallons a day, I'm sorry. It was getting the right ingredients. You used to buying a small little bottle of garlic salt or whatever it is, but when you need a bulk load, you don't want to buy 50 of those small things, right? So then you got to go outside and look for it. We try to use as much fresh product as possible. Getting it, but from the mainland, we're shipping the product in wet, we're dehydrating it here, and then we're going to ship it back out dry, as a dried product. So sourcing different areas, different vendors, it takes a long time. It's a process to find the right. Some ingredients is the same thing, but when you mix it together, it tastes different. So I don't know. Sourcing is our bags come from our original first set of bags came from Wisconsin. There's nobody in Hawaii that makes printed bags, so there you go again. You got to go source outside. So it's always a challenge trying to find new avenues, trying to save money any way possible.
I guess Angie, one thing that you probably ask you is when was your first big order, and then were you prepared for it?
My first big order really is when I had prepared to go to the Tokyo Gift Fair. Prior to that, I was, my operation is in my 2-car garage. I converted my 2-car garage, and that's my workshop. And I have 3 dedicated employees. That's me, myself, and I. And I have some 1099 contract workers that also help me in production. So I had started off very, very small. I had started off with truly $100 investment turned around. Fortunately, Marcia from Trendex is here, that she was my fabric rep. Went to her because there was a particular fabric that actually did very, very well with me that that company carries. So I was able to find it. I was actually buying it from the local fabric mart and then realized maybe I can just go directly to the source. Contacted her. She was gracious enough to show me the entire line, told me what type of pricing I would, and I needed to do that so I can go ahead and scale my business because I was buying my products truly through retail. And sourcing is like anything, I don't care what you are selling, that's going to be your biggest challenge. And so I ended up doing was I was able to get that fabric, but unfortunately they had discontinued the particular fabric that I wanted, but I really wanted it. And I knew in preparation of the Tokyo Gift Fair and preparing for that, that particular product would be something that would do really, really well. So they did bring that in for me, and I was able to go ahead and just kind of mass produce it. So like Wayne said, making friends in the industry is so key. I've talked to other designers who are doing the same thing that I do, and we share the same trials and tribulations of everything that it is in manufacturing a product in Hawaii, especially textile product. And all of us designers are running into the same thing. Either we have workforce issues, we have sourcing issues, or whatever it is. But how can you prepare yourself to take that next level? And so I was able to go ahead and find out from my fellow designers, other sources that were here that could help me with preparing for that order. And it's whether it's going to be the one who's going to help me cut my fabric, or purchasing my fabric, to cutting my fabric, and now into actual production. And so I was able to actually prepare that really through the means of reaching out to other designers. The fabric source, Marcia, was gracious enough to even try to help me to find other probably sewing contractors that could help. And I mean, that is, all of us will ask, and I even will go to even Wayne, call him up personally and ask him, Wayne, do you have any connections with any sewing contractors, which, believe it or not, is very rare. It's just trying to find all of that and then prepare, so.
Yeah, so I think you and Blaine mentioned, that in order to make more product, you needed to get in more supplies. So on the side of your house, you have a warehouse?
I do actually have a storage unit, yes.
Okay.
But before that, excuse me, Wayne, is that I was actually utilizing the foreign trade zone. One of the things that I had learned in my banking days is I know who to call on for a business. And so in my banking days, I was a VP and commercial branch manager for Central Pacific Bank. And so I used to attend a lot of the different seminars to get myself educated to help my clients. So now I'm on the other spectrum of finding that. So prior to having my own source, I actually found out that the foreign trade zone was able to help me, and I actually had stored much of my products because I did have my fabric. Although it was considered to be domestic goods when it came in here, the foreign trade zone enabled me to go ahead and store my fabric, my pallets of fabric. I think it was about 3 or 4 pallets of fabric, and they are exceptionally well. And the reason why is that it is very, very low cost in terms of storage. It's totally secure. The people here to, when you need to pull out your items is totally excellent. And then I could say my palette started to decrease, I was able to get into a actual storage unit, which was fortunate to find.
Also, actually, we'll go to Wayne because you mentioned the foreign trade zone. So we'll put Wayne on the spot a little bit. So
Yeah.
Wayne, can you tell us about, because David's not here.
Yeah, David Skin, he was here as a tall gentleman, very famous guy. You'll see him on TV. If for some of you, you know what I mean. But how many know what the foreign trade zone's about? Joe, you don't count. Anybody else? Well, actually, the foreign trade zone and what Angie's referring to is right next to us where we are. I'm not too sure what the total square footage of this warehouse is. It's the bonded warehouse through U.S. Customs. So manufacturers that bring goods in overseas can use and utilize this facility to import your product into here, and you store it here. And again, for the DBED folks, I'm not too sure if I'm spelling this the right way, but you store your imported goods here. You pay per square foot, per pallet. So versus you bringing in something in, you take it out of customs, you pay the duty of it. Here, you leave it here, so you don't pay duty. You pay duty on boxes that you take out. So every week you take out one box, you pay duty on that one box. So it's a bonded warehouse. So it's part of U.S. Customs. It's run by U.S. Customs and the Foreign Trade Zone. And in a nutshell, that's what it is. It's a low-cost storage warehouse where you, as a manufacturer, can bring in products again overseas and have it stored here. For domestic storage, it is possible as well, but the pricing will go up for just domestic storage. Did I miss anything? But again, David will be back. You can ask him. But again, it's a real good opportunity especially for small manufacturers just starting out that are bringing goods in overseas. Again, they do A to Z. They do full service. They store it for you. You call them up and say, hey, I need a couple boxes. You tell them which ones, they'll pull it out for you. Right, so it's a real good system, and again, it's been, especially for small manufacturers, it's been a really good way to save some money for storage. So, yeah.
I guess, Blaine, maybe you can talk about what you do for warehousing your inventory. Maybe since your products, like your meat, generally has a shelf life. How do you deal with that? And maybe you can share some of your lead times for some of the things you get in.
So we have a freezer on site which holds about 2 weeks of product of beef. Luckily, working with HFM, they bring in the bulk from overseas and they store it in their freezer, which is, we don't have to pay electricity and all that extra money, which is lovely. But I would say it's our lead time. So when we order meat, we always about 6 weeks out, I would say. So when we say we have a big show coming up, say like the Made in Hawaii Festival or the Made in Hawaii Festival, we got to ramp up our production. We got to give them a heads up of about 6 weeks so their supplier can stock them up with the product to get ready for us. Other than that, I mean, we try to buy as we use. We recently purchased bags that came in from China. We have enough storage upstairs to store the bags, but there's a lot of stuff that we have to bring in weekly because there's our soy sauce, our meats, some of the cleaning supplies. Other than that, I mean, this would be awesome if we had one of these on Maui to store our stuff there.
Yeah, so I guess, Angie, I mean, how do you deal with your bulk material? Because I think you sort of mentioned that you bring it on pallets, and then I know for fabric, I mean, I know a little bit about fabric, but usually comes in rolls. So how do you deal with those large rolls getting into your production area?
Yeah, so when I first had started, I would be buying the fabric rolls pretty much from several different suppliers, whether it's going to be the 2 local fabric sources here in Honolulu, as well as in the mainland. And I would be purchasing the rolls. To get the wholesale price, they have minimums. Depending on the fabrication, it can run you a 60-yard ROT, which is, very long. Imagine 60 inches long, and for instance, the fleece that I purchased from Trendex, It's really big. It's, I don't know what the circumference is, but they're very, very large. So I was bringing those in, and I had the ability to actually store them in my two-car garage. I originally had started off with a very, very small portion, and next thing you know, I'm just building out, and my husband's tool boxes or his tool things has finally moved out. And 2017, he was officially out of my garage. He has a little shed in the backyard, but it is full on, a small little sweatshop with 2 sewing machines. And I actually have a huge storage area that I store a lot of my day-to-day rolls of fabric that I use. But the bulk of it is still in storage. I also, one of the advantages of using the foreign trade zone too is that I actually had imported some of my packaging from China that really opened the door for me to use the foreign trade zone and then get that lower cost in terms of the square footage on that. So it was either 15 cents a square foot to domestic at 30. So that's how I was able to store my domestic goods that I had got brought in. But yeah, it's pretty much in my garage, my day-to-day that I use, and I take that, or what happens is when I do a big shipment of fabric that comes in, I will go ahead and utilize another designer, local designer, and that is RE South, who is from the Andy South line. We've become, really, really good friends because we're in the same industry. She's actually had helped me to digitize my design. That puts it on a marker, and that is kind of how to say it in a layman's term, or is like a blueprint or a big large pattern of design. Take that in. My fabric is when I was utilizing one sewing contractor, my fabric, I would place in the order of the fabric that was either coming in from mostly from California. They would drop ship it to the sewing contractor, and I would then go ahead and drop off my marker, give them my cut sheet, and all the specifications it is on how to cut it and everything, and so they'll do the cut. Some of them, one sewing contractor, actually did a cut and sew for me. And now, because I'm actually doing more custom work and I'm getting my source also from California, these are on a little bit of a more workable scale. Unfortunately, it's all hand cut because they're all engineered cuts. So, but.
Can I make one quick point? Blaine had mentioned he wished that there was a facility like the foreign trade zone on Maui, but that's a good point because you can get your company or your facility bonded through the foreign trade zone here. You don't have to be here specifically. And if anybody has questions about that, you can talk to David Sikking or Wayne Okamoto or Sarumi Hamasu here at the main office of the foreign trade zone. They can help you with that. You don't have to be specifically right here. It's just convenient for most companies. But for those that aren't, either on Maui or the Big Island or Hawaii or wherever you are,
I think there is one in Hilo. There is a bonded warehouse in Hilo that is available.
And I know that they've worked in the past few years to make that process more streamlined. So there used to be quite a bit of paperwork involved, as you can imagine, but it's not the case anymore. It's very doable for the average company to get that set up.
Yeah, so based off of what discussion we have so far, one thing that I've seen with manufacturers as they scale up is they start ordering a lot of inventory. Having too much, it can be a bad thing. I know there's minimum orders, but if you order too much, there's less inventory turns. What that does for a manufacturer, especially for a small manufacturer, is it ties up your cash flow. So that'll be one thing that I would recommend, I would advise everyone to look at. And when you're thinking of scaling up, think about the minimum amount you need to stay in production, so that way you don't have to get more storage space. Like for example, if Blaine got his 6 weeks of beef in his facility, his energy costs, his refrigeration costs would be not very cost effective. So just keep that in mind, you know. Unfinished goods, even your finished product, if you're overproducing, one of the things that we try to teach in our lean manufacturing class is that when you overproduce, it actually causes, you know, more waste, more cost. It'll increase the cost for your operation. Because if you think about it, you overproduce, where do you store it? You can't keep it on the production floor. You have to put it in a finished goods warehouse or finished goods area. And then who has to manage that finished goods area? You have an inventory manager. You need a forklift to move things around when it gets in the way. So just some of the things that we try to teach in lean manufacturing, you know, produce to customer demand. In Hawaii, we understand that, you know, there's boats that need to get shipped out on certain days. So build up the amount you need, but try not to overproduce. That's the biggest thing, because that can lead to other types of waste, which we'll cover in a little bit later on in the. I have a couple of slides that will introduce you into lean manufacturing a little bit. Rob, are there any questions from the outer island, or anyone here has any questions before we move on to the next
There was
section?
a comment from Maui that the Maui Research and Technology Park is a foreign trade zone.
Okay.
How can I contact David?
Oh, yeah, so the question was, how can you contact David?
If you just go to the website of the Foreign Trade Zone 9, ftz9.org, look for the administrator there. His name is David Sicking. But if you stay around later, I'll give you his email address. And he might even be back here. He was here earlier fixing the microphone. I can introduce you anytime. Any more questions? Online questions?
Wait, I can add something.
Sure.
So when Wayne mentioned about bringing in, you know, over excess of, you know, products and, you know, where do you store it? Some of the challenges too is that when you, especially in my industry, where we are pretty much, our competitor is the Like Hawaii products that, you know, they're not made in Hawaii, but they look like they're from Hawaii. They're sold in many of the different boutiques and shops in Waikiki and Ala Moana and so forth. And how do you compete? And the only way you can compete is to make sure your cost of goods are as low as possible. That challenge then comes is, in order for you get that lower cost of goods, means that you have to buy in bulk. So you have to actually, you know, I battle with, you know, me and my two other employees, myself and I, you know, what do I do? And I need this product. I need to get it at this low cost, but that means I have to buy it in bulk. So yes, some of my product has been, you know, or my raw goods has been sitting on the shelf. That's like cash on the shelf. But it was almost as though that I needed to do that just so I could either get the product or get that lower cost so that I can. So it's that being able to manage that and thinking of all the different ways, you know, since I'm a designer, I can think of all different ways that I can actually design different products in that fabric or whatever. So yeah, that's one of the things. So, you know, we are forced with just, you know, buying bulk items at that low cost. I mean, buying items just to get that low cost means huge, you know, quantities.
Sorry, just one more added food for thought. So I know we're all here because of exporting. So how many of you are already exporting? How many of you want to start exporting? All right, so food for thought, right? I think, you know, exporting is good, right? It's not for everybody. And I just want to make this, and I think this is a good segment to talk about supply chain. So imagine yourself as a small manufacturer doing local sales, maybe some online sales, and you go to a trade show, right? And you hit it big, right? You get an order. You're going to be happy. 10 minutes later, you're going to go, oh, shit. I'm serious, right? Now you have this order of 5 pallets or whatever pallets. And then you're going to go, where am I going to get my raw material? Is my supplier ready for this, right? They have no idea that you went to this trade show. They have no idea of the demand that you're going to come down within the next 2 weeks. So just food for thought, right? I think exporting is good. You go to these trade shows, but you need to work very closely with your supplier, because you come back with a PO for 3 pallets and you go, okay, where do I go now? And we'll talk about workforce because that's a different issue. But for the supply chain, that's something that you need to think about. If it's not locally sourced, or if you're bringing it in from China or wherever, you are going to have to make a delivery commitment to whoever gives you that PO, right? And if you don't think about supply chain before you go to these shows, you're going to get stuck at some point, because what's going to happen is your quality is going to go down, because you're going to just scramble for raw materials. You're not going to get the same look. You're not going to get the same feel. If it's fabric or if it's food, you're not going to get the same raw ingredients. So again, just food for thought, right? I mean, I think we're all here because we want to expand. We want to export. We want that 3 pallet order. But in order to get that order, something in the back of your mind has to say, okay, where am I going to get my raw products? Just food for thought, right? Something that you need to think about, because again, especially in Asia, if you screw up on your first order, it's not a good thing, right? I mean, if you don't make your first delivery, you have a nice display and you ship them something other than what you said you were going to deliver on, it's a big deal, right? So just food for thought. Again, when you start thinking about exporting, you need to work closely with your suppliers so that they understand, hey, I'm going to go to this show and I may need some, if I get this order, I'm going to need some extra product.
On the flip side, a lot of the companies that we consult to that are exporting, even seasoned exporters, don't think about shipping the product later and what it's like to ship the 5 pallet order versus shipping onesies, twosies that you may have been getting along the way. And it's very important as part of your supply chain management to look at the backside of everything and what it takes to ship and insure and what have you, all of that product later, because shipping 5 pallets is much different than shipping a flat rate box via USPS. So please look at that too.
So when I decided that I was going to do the Tokyo Gift Fair with all the preparation, I knew the product that I wanted to go ahead and showcase. And I went in and I talked to my supplier. I got the fabric. I then went through the means of actually going through a graphic designer to do my packaging, because, you know, packaging your product in Japan is so essential. And did all of those things, got everything. So I was seriously over-prepared for that large order that unfortunately did not come my first show. And I was told through all of the exporting that when you do go to Japan, it's all about relationship basis. You're going to go there at the show with a high hope that you're going to get this large order. People are going to be flocking to your booth and they're just going to be writing orders. And it's not necessarily so at the Tokyo Gift Fair. Prior to me going through the process, a lot of the different export mentors were saying that you really kind of have to be there about 3 years. It's almost like a 3-year commitment, because it's all about the relationship. They want to be able to see you. They want to, see if you're a legitimate company. Are you able to produce the product? Because if they put in that order, they want that order. And like Wayne said, is what they see on the floor, whether it's your sample, that is what you really need to go ahead and sell. So I was really, really over-prepared on that. And now, although that I did have an order from the show, it wasn't substantial. It wasn't something that was a constant, reorder and reorder. But that's okay. It was a hard learning lesson, but the raw goods that I do have, and I'm able to use them on other means, whether it's going to be the retail shows that I do, my online stores, or so forth. So, like Wayne said, is making sure when you do these shows, you better be able to, prepare. You better be prepared to go ahead and ship. And that was something that you need to do. Now, you could go under-prepared, and I could have went and got that order and then scramble for, my raw goods that probably would not be able to come. And also, if you're getting things, and if all fabric is sometimes sourced, overseas, you are, it's going to take longer than, it's not going to take 2 weeks. It's going to take several months, maybe longer.
I can add something to that. I just wanted to add real quick. So when we order our bags from China, it takes about 12 weeks, the total from the day you order it to the day you receive it. And it's such a big, bulky order. There's a lot of inventory you sit on. So that's one thing we didn't know. We used to just order as we went. And when we had to make such a big purchase of bags, that would last us 3 months. So every 3 months we'd have to do it. So what we did was we found that company out of Wisconsin. They're able to digitally print a bag. It doesn't come out exactly the same, but it's very close. And they can do it within 15 days, you'll get it here. So just as a backup, make sure you get something. In case you get an order and you don't have bags and you get a couple weeks to make it, you can call on another company. It's almost like locally sourced, which is 14 days, 15 days away. But yeah, keep that in mind.
Yeah, so everyone saw Dylan come in. So Dylan, maybe you could introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. I feel like this should be called scaling up and spreading thin, because that's certainly how I'm feeling right now as we grow. I started Manoa Chocolate about 6 or 7 years ago, and a lot of our growth, so my idea from the beginning was to be able to sell chocolate bars all over the world. I wanted to plant fruit trees here in Hawaii, and as we grow, HiSTEP, DBET, USADA, all these programs have been invaluable in order to get our product to all these other countries. So we're now selling in Japan, we're selling in Singapore, Hong Kong, France, Germany, Canada, and a lot of that is thanks to these programs. So I really appreciate it, and I'm happy I'm here.
Yeah, so we're just wrapping up the supply chain. So some questions that we asked was, when you got your first big order, were you prepared for it? And then what changed in your supply chain to meet the increased demand?
Our orders started kind of smaller. We started with, it took about 9 months to get our first account, which was Whole Foods. And that was because I think they didn't think we'd still be around, so they kept dragging out the process. But it didn't start big, and so it was always these steps until we felt we were ready to be able to handle something bigger, which was maybe 4 years later. So we just retailed a lot, which was super helpful because it allowed us to expand into wholesale easier because the profit margins are not as big. And then we ended up contacting, for our industry, a craft chocolate distributor, and that was 4 years after, and we had the equipment, so I knew we were capable of doing it and filling in those shoes. And even then, the orders didn't start as big as we'd hoped, which was for the best. So we had everything in place first, but it still was really challenging because we had to learn how to set up a pallet and make sure that our chocolate bar fit a case that could sit on a shelf with the top that gets ripped off immediately to be easy to sell for the store. That case had to sit into another box, and everything had to be sized appropriately to fit on a pallet. So how much can you fit on a pallet? And then you have to find what shipping companies or logistic companies will work the best for you, because that's kind of a challenge to ship from Hawaii. It adds a lot of cost. So we grew into it carefully, but none of it was easy. Now it's quite easy. We have an order today going to Canada, one going to Utah, and then one going to Hong Kong. And I'm not there, kinda, which is great. Before I was always there.
What's the brand of your chocolate?
Manoa Chocolate, Hawaii, yeah. But it's all about suppliers. Like for us, we have a company downtown in Ivalai called Electric Pencil. They're wonderful. I can call them. They do an amazing job printing, and I know I can rely on them. For our bean supply, we're now trying to order 6 to 12 months in advance so we don't run out, because we're currently out. But these are things that we learn over time to what do you need to have on hand, because the last thing you want to do is let down your wholesale accounts so they don't rely on you. I don't think you have a lot of chances with that.
Would you allow
Rebranding, like a white label or private label?
Yeah, like you produce and I do the labeling, not using.
Oh yeah, we love doing that. We're set up to be chocolate makers. I have no problem. Our name doesn't need to be on it. We just want to make the best chocolate. We don't care if it's our label or not. That's what we're set up for.
Yeah, so I guess any final questions before we move on to the next section? No? Okay. Rob? So again, following through, supply chain we looked at. So when you get a big order, how will you fulfill it? As a company that's looking to scale up, you need to get financially prepared for scaling up. Scaling up your business is expensive. You're going to need a lot more capital. You'll need more space, like we talked about earlier. Possibly new equipment, more employees, because with the production you need more hands unless you go fully automated. But that requires a whole lot more money. And of course, you need more time and resources to train the employees if you do hire more. And then that means exploring and carefully evaluating financing options. So I think this would be a good time to maybe bring up Joe from SBDC, because financing rapid growth is a big commitment. So it's a good idea to find and work with a finance professional. And we'll ask Joe to talk a little bit about SBDC and some of the services that they offer for people looking to scale up.
Thank you. So export finance is a topic in and of itself that could probably take at least one seminar, if not more. And I believe we had one, was it last year, on export finance? Did anyone attend that? Okay, so I have 2 minutes to do a 3-hour seminar here. Basically, I just want to cover a couple things. The first is that for export finance, great, okay, so you got the order, now you have to buy the materials, you have to pay the people to do the work. You might have to pay extra storage, all of the things that we've been talking about. So fortunately, the SBA, Small Business Administration, cabinet level agency of the US government, has some loan guarantee programs specifically for export. I believe there are 3 of them. I'm not going to go into them now, but fortunately today we have a couple of bankers in the room, Bank of Hawaii, and was it ASB? Yeah. So you can definitely speak to your banks about SBA guaranteed export financing, because the banks do like those kinds of loans specifically because they carry a guarantee. So if you run away, there's the ability of the bank to get paid from the US government. Of course, they don't like to do that, but it helps the banks reduce their risk profile. And I would just say that one of the export loans has a guarantee of 90%. So for every $100 that you borrow, the bank will be guaranteed 90 of those dollars. The others are a little bit less, 60 to 70%, but they're still really, really good programs. And the second point that I want to make quickly is that qualifying for a loan can be challenging, and you want to approach the bank when you're prepared to do that. So that means having perhaps an export plan, good financial statements produced with a good financial management system, whether it's something basic like QuickBooks or Xero or something more advanced, so that when you give the bank the numbers, they can believe what you're telling them. So one of the things that we do in the SBDC is to help people produce those kinds of good financial reports from a good financial reporting system, whatever it might be, along with an export plan and some other kinds of things. So if you're in a situation like that, or you anticipate to be in a situation like that, it's a good idea to start early, because getting a loan from a bank always takes longer than you think. It's just the nature of things. It just, in conclusion, Remember that we're a source at the SBDC for this kind of service, along with some other things. Our services are free, and we welcome hearing from you. Any questions? Okay, thank you. So Wayne just mentioned there is another government agency that does help with loan financing and especially export insurance called the Ex-Im Bank, which is in Washington, D.C. We find that mostly the smaller companies cannot benefit as much as the larger ones. So when you get to be at a certain point, you should check out the Ex-Im Bank in Washington, D.C. for loan guarantees as well as insurance. Ex-Im Bank, I think it's on the internet.
Can I just add real quickly, on the HPEG YouTube channel or on the DBET video archive channel, you can find past seminars that were specific to export finance. And we do spend time in those seminars talking about the Ex-Im Bank. Their local, well, their Hawaii representative is in Los Angeles, but all the contact information is there inside those videos. But if you needed that, please let me know and I can just get it for you. But I encourage you to go back and look at those videos because they're quite detailed. One of the HPEC board members is with the Bank of Hawaii, and she does a very good job of going through the different export financing topics there.
And isn't David, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't David still the Ex-Im Bank representative? Or Dwayne? Do you know much? And again, I don't know, and I don't want to miss.
Even Dwayne wasn't able to, at the time, I think this was last year, wasn't able to talk too much about it because it was kind of in flux too. So. Okay. But I think if we need to, go back to the, like Rob said, last year's seminars, and then if anybody's really interested, we can definitely.
Right. Again, it is a good program, and we've known a lot of companies that did utilize the Ex-Im Bank services. So again, like Rob said, look at the past webinars, or if David does come back from the foreign trade zone, you can also ask him because he could probably give you a brief update of what the services are to the foreign trade zone.
Yeah, so let's start over with Angie. So in this section, we're just going to ask you about, how did you finance or how did you find the capital for expansion? Like, did you go for loans? Did you, crowdfund? Because that's another way some companies do it. Maybe you can share some insight into the way you did it for your operation.
Yeah, so when I first started, I had just started off with just my personal monies that just went and, I snowballed it right back into the business. So, and then later, again, in preparation for me to go to the Tokyo Gift Fair and making sure that, I'm able to produce the product that I wanted to present and hopefully get a large order for. I had fortunately know some people in banking, my former employer, and with my knowledge in banking, it is so true what Joe said, and Joe, by the way, is my advisor that I go to when I need some help on, the business aspect at Small Business Development Center. But yeah, you do need to go to the bank when you really don't need the money. Because when you're desperate for money, it's going to show. And the bank may be a little bit kind of sketchy. So I had gone in there, and if anything that anybody can tell you is make sure you take care of your credit score, that is going to be so essential because that's going to make the decision process that much easier. So I had gone in there, and as ill-advised it is, I did not go in with a business plan, but you do need to go in, and I went in to my banker, went in and explained to them. I had the monies actually on my own to do this, but I wanted to, again, get the lower cost of all my goods, which means I had to buy in bulk and so forth. And so I had gone into the bank and got first the line of credit, and then I knew that I really couldn't be able to turn that around, and I turned it back into a term loan. So Central Pacific Bank, not to plug them, but that's my former banker. They were so good to me, but they were the ones who actually did help me. And I haven't gone into exporting loans, which Naomi Masuno, who was actually my former boss when I was working at Bank of Hawaii, she does an excellent, she is the resource really when it comes to, banking, exporting loans and that whole, like Joe says, it's 3 hours, 3 days to learn all about that. So, but I didn't have to go that. I just went through a conventional business loan to do that and went to my community bank.
For us, when we first started off, yeah, it was constantly turning the money back over into the business. I think our first dehydrator was like $500, and it took me a couple months before I could even buy another one. So, and then when we got to the point where we're ready to scale up, I have a consultant that I work with, and we created the business plan. We also went to CPB. That's who we do our banking with at the gas station. One thing I would want to say is have a connection with your banker. Have talk to them. Get to know them. Let them learn about your business, and you want to be friends with them because it makes it that much easier and smoother when you go to get the loan. So we created a business plan. I think it took us months to go over it, and it was just based off of what we were doing. So all the numbers that we plugging in for the new facility, there's nobody else doing it at a large scale. So we had nothing to follow. So it was kind of like, this is what we think, this is what we hope, and this is what we need. And then when we got into the new facility, it was totally opposite. We ran it pretty thin. But that's the only way you're gonna know is you gotta take the charge. Fortunately, we're fortunate to have this HTDC grant. We heard about it. A couple people mentioned it, and I was in my store one day and I seen this guy taking pictures of the bags in the gas station, and I told my wife, I said, "Is this competition? Like, is somebody looking out to come against us?" And it was Wayne. And then he came up, introduced himself, and said about the grant, the manufacturing grant, and that's really big. I mean, it took us a while to get everything down for it, the application, but it was a big help. I mean, it helped us get moving forward. I think we had to make like 3 loans and on top of to get to where we're in our new facility. So we tried to streamline the build out, coordinate with all the equipment coming in. We have some from Switzerland, another machine from New Zealand. And you got to pay up front. They're not going to send it to you until you pay. So you got all this money out there and you haven't made a bag of jerky yet. So, you got to plan for that, which we do. We figure out 3 to 4 months we should be in there. And going from making it myself in my gas station to having workers do it, last year was a full year of just learning the operation, training workers, going through hiring workers and whatnot. But have a good financial plan. And look it over, do the highs, the lows, as close as you can get. But other than that, the grant application, MAP grant is huge.
I want to tell you guys how I met the SBDC, and it was reluctant at first because I was trying to get a rev line increase. So my revolving line of credit was $15,000, and I wanted to go to 50. And the banker goes, I need you to go see the SBDC first. And I was like, oh gosh, I don't have time for this. Like, I'm treading water. I have to do all these things. Last thing I want to do is go drive to town. And it was one of the very best things I've ever done as far as the business goes, is going to meet Lori and Joe. And I now meet with the Small Business Development Center at least once a quarter, if not once a month. And they'll look at all your financials and tell you wherever you want to go, they'll help you get there, which is invaluable. So as long as you know where you're going to go, they'll help make it happen. So I did that. Our line did increase, And another thing somebody told me when I was first starting is, as long as you become a numbers person or find your numbers person, you will be okay. Because that's the true picture of your business. It's the health of your business. And so I've gotten better at it, but as we've moved into real accountants and financial statements, it's so important to be watching your line items and knowing where you should be. In fact, the SBDC has played somewhat of a CFO role for us at times, which is really helpful. Initially, I got a student loan to start our business because I was still at UH. I was like, well, who else is going to give me money? And so that $3,000 was used to buy some initial chocolate making equipment, which was great. It was super fun because I didn't have any overhead. As soon as we outgrew my parents' kitchen, in this case, and rented a space, it became much more serious because we had to make sure we paid our rent. And then we started to have people helping and had to pay them too. And for the next few years, it became really challenging. But what we did is a Kickstarter. And the Kickstarter really did kickstart our business. It got us the initial equipment to start to scale because equipment is everything. And I know we're going to talk about equipment in a little bit, but that money was really nice. And I learned some really valuable lessons there that were painful because I spent all the money that I got on equipment and then had to deliver a product, which was really fortunate that it was during Christmas season, so our retail sales were able to cover it, but we just squeaked by, including using all the money we had access to, which was $15,000 at the time. As we've grown, whatever I can get out of the bank, and it's true about the bank, you go there when you don't need money, and you get as much out of them as you can. So we have, a couple of years ago, increased our revolving line to $250,000. Now we're not using anywhere close to that, but I know that we didn't need it, and I might as well take as much as I possibly can have if I need it. And now we are looking at building a new factory soon, and we probably will use a lot of that. But you never go when you don't need it, when you need it, because they will sense that. They don't want to loan you money if you need it. Yeah, just watch your numbers all the time, every month. And every single one of you as a business owner should go meet the SBDC at least a few times a year.
Okay. Anybody have any questions before we move on to the next slides? I think pretty much what we're talking about, some of the methods that you can have access to capital. The following slides that I'm going to go over real quick is methods, to help drive down some of the operating costs through lean manufacturing. But
question online, not exactly related to finance, but does Dylan or Angie, do you use any packaging or labeling companies in Hawaii?
Yes, I used a packaging company, and I can't recall. They were, well, first I used Islands Marketing just to get just the really basic Selene packaging. But for my printing, it slips my mind on who actually did my printing of my wrap for my travel blanket. But it was a local source located in Kako'ako. That I did. And then my other packaging, which were my vinyl bags. My business is all about travel, so anything that I do, I try to still keep that within travel. So I went through the means of sourcing a vinyl bag that has my logo on it, and I say it's a TSA bag. So it's just a vinyl zipper bag. But I actually got that sourced out in China.
I'll tie this back into financing because one of the reasons we needed more access to money was so that we could buy bigger packaging runs. So our accountants, not that long ago, were going, Dylan, we're not sure if your financial statement's right because your packaging expenses are so high that there's probably more than you have in chocolate. But we're so much in the packaging industry. And so locally, we wanted to do bigger print runs because that was the only way to reduce the unit cost, which is why we also needed to dip into our revolving line of credit. There's a company called Electric Pencil. I think I mentioned them already. they're amazing. Like, they have incredible machines. In fact, so every time you guys fly into Hawaii, there's the forms that you fill out. They're just running like millions of those things. They've got real equipment and they can do a really good job. So electric pencil, which is part of Honblue and Hagedon, the guy's Manfred. So I like finding certain suppliers and sticking with them. Honblue electric pencil, I become friends with them. They're super nice and they do a really great job. The other one is in this same building, Savor Brands. They're also great. They own part of a factory in China, except they ensure the quality. If it doesn't come here right, you're not paying for it, or they're sending new stuff right away because they also own the factory. So Savor Brands, they're excellent, and because it's China, it's also cheaper. But we get most of our packaging, our outer packaging printed here, and then for things like nibs or bags, that happens in China with Savor Brands. And they also do a great job.
You might as well give them some more publicity. Electric pencil is EP.Hawaii.Gov.
Yeah.
Good for them. We get that question increasingly at HPEC. A lot of people are very curious about packaging because they're just, as you said, you're spending a lot of money on packaging. One more question, are there any financial incentives from the state of Hawaii to start manufacturing companies, particularly small businesses?
So we do have a grant program, which I'll cover in the next section.
Okay.
Yeah, under equipment. Yeah. So if no more questions, I'm just gonna breeze through the next couple of slides real quick. Again, it's just a short intro into lean manufacturing, pretty much a way of thinking about your process. Yeah. So what I'd like you guys to learn about is value-added activity and non-value-added activity. So if you think about it this way, value-added activity is any activity that changes the fit, form, or function. It's done right the first time and something that your customer is willing to pay for. So a simple example would be a woodworking shop or a lumber shop. Value-added activity for the lumber shop is whenever the saw cuts the wood. All the other stuff that they do, stacking the wood, moving the pallets, cleaning up, all that is non-value-added activity. All right. So just think of that for your operation. Rob, maybe you can go to the next slide. So the significance of this, the common mistake is that, a lot of companies, I think based off of manufacturing studies and actual, implementation, most companies have about 95% non-value added activity. Only 5% of the whatever a company is doing in manufacturing is actually value added. So again, the woodworking example, the lumberjack, the saw isn't cutting, for most lumber companies, the saw isn't cutting the wood 100% of the time. It cuts and it gets stacked, it gets moved, it gets put into another section, you do the cleanup, So think of it that way. But a common mistake that I've seen with a lot of manufacturers is that they try to focus on optimizing their value-added activity. Rob, can you switch over? Is there another section? So again, if you think about it this way, if you try to improve the efficiencies of your non-value-added activity, you only gain that much in the yellow. But the bad thing about doing that though is, like, for example, if you're cutting wood and you're telling the guy to cut wood faster, that's kind of dangerous. It'll compromise some of the quality, some of the safety for the worker. So one of the things that we try to teach in lean manufacturing is, Rob, maybe go to the next slide, is to focus on reducing downtime. So downtime is an acronym, defects, overproduction, waiting, non-utilized talent, transportation, inventory, motion, excessive processing. These are the things that are usually considered non-value added activity. And if you were to reduce this, Rob, you can switch over to the next one. One more. These are some of the gains that you'll get. By reducing your non-value added activity, it'll give your operation more time to do the value added work that makes you money. So if you guys are interested, we'll stick around after. You can ask us questions about lean manufacturing. But it's something that a lot of the big manufacturers do, especially on the mainland, to improve their processes. Again, this is all focused towards growing your bottom line, reducing your operational costs, that type of thing.
I've got a question.
Yep.
So if you guys are, so we're building a new factory.
Yep.
Would you guys look at our?
Oh, on the mic. Yeah.
We're building a new factory, hopefully in the next couple of months. Would you look at our layout and say, I think that you should move this here because of efficiency here and et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, so I think you're looking at my slides, but on the next one. So this is a typical layout. I mean, for small manufacturers growing, you move into a space, you buy equipment, you put it here, and then a couple months later, a couple years later, you expand a little bit, you buy more equipment. Oh, we have space here. Let's put it on this side. So this is just like an office example, but this applies to a lot of manufacturers that I've seen in Hawaii. You put your equipment where there's space. Then eventually your process flow, if you do a process flow map, you trace where your product goes. It goes crisscross all over the place. And that's whenever you have lines crossing. I mean, you guys can do this now with your current process. Follow your product from receiving, see where it goes to your first processing step, going over to your next processing step, and then out the door, for shipping. If there's any cross in the process flow, I mean, I would look at revising your layout to make it look more ideal. Rob, you can go over to the next slide. Do something like this. Manufacturers on the mainland, big manufacturers, to improve efficiency, one of the best things you can do simply is improve your facility layout. So J's like this, S's, again, things that don't cross over each other, because when you get those crossing overs, you can get human contact, just more things that will, like more motion waste. You can think of it that way. Yep. But that was it for, a quick taste of lean manufacturing. But we do offer this class if you guys are interested. It's usually about a 6 to 7 hour class, and we go over how companies can do simple things to reduce downtime. Yeah, so again, the acronym downtime, right? Defects, overproduction, waiting, non-utilized talent, transportation, and then inventory. We sort of discussed earlier already with the supply chain. Having too much inventory is a bad thing. Motion, which is part of the spaghetti diagram that I just showed you, and then excessive processing. So things that normally a customer wouldn't pay for, or non-value-added activity. Okay. All right, Rob, we'll go over to the next one. All right, so we head over to equipment. So I guess questions for the panelists. What's your current production capacity, and then what did you do to increase your production capacity in terms of equipment, that type of thing?
Okay. Well, as you can sense, I am not at the level of these two gentlemen here in terms of, production and so forth. But I do pretty well for myself, being that my workshop is in my 2-car garage. What I ended up doing really in this last year is, because last year was actually my best year that I had increased some of my export sales and my domestic sales, my wholesale account, and then of course my retail events. But it was so essential, like Wayne mentioned, is that I actually had to revamp my 2-car garage to make it more efficient for me, and it was basically bringing in one of my helpers to come in, and we actually went from, when I do get that roll of fabric to come in, what do I do, and where do I need to put it? And so I have a sufficient workflow in there, and I have my own fulfillment station that houses all of my boxes and shipping equipment that I need to do when I have to send out my orders. The boxing of these and so forth. So the equipment itself, and I've looked in and I've talked with Wayne several times during that manufacturer's grant about possibly getting a printer, because in 2016 I kind of did a little bit of a pivot. I through my experience at the Tokyo Gift Fair and finding out that the product that I was actually selling and thinking that it would do well there, it actually wasn't something that did well. They were more focused on my travel tote, and that was something I had in Hawaiian Airlines in their duty-free catalog. So I really kind of went in and focused on that and utilized I wanted to set myself apart from the open line fabrics that are out there and started doing my own custom design. And so I went through DTG printing, which is the digital printing. I had a local source here that was helping me, so I basically designed it and so forth. It was hard for me to scale with that company because my production was getting higher and higher, and he was running his own business. So even though I gave him sufficient lead time, it was taking that much longer. And then I didn't want to get to that point where I actually had to tell that retail store or that wholesaler that, "Oh, I'm sorry, it's taking a little bit longer." I did look in, went through several different seminars that Wayne them had about the manufacturer's grant and thinking about getting my own equipment. But at the same time, with that equipment meant it wasn't really the money, but it was who was going to run that equipment. Who's going to run the printing machine, and it's the workflow issue. But I have sufficient equipment that I've had myself. I have 2 industrial machines that I use. I have everything I need really to basically produce my product. I use other sources here on the island, whether it's my cutting source, all of the other components to go ahead and to do that. So in terms of my equipment, I've had that, and I take care of that equipment. That is so essential. So, I have somebody that comes in and services my machine just to keep it top running, because I've had situations where my machine wasn't working correctly, and then it just kind of did a serious domino effect on production. So that was it. I hope I answered the question.
Yeah. I mean, if
Parts on hand?
Excuse me?
Do you keep spare parts?
I keep on my machine. Well, I actually have 2 different. One of the things that I learned in banking is don't put all your eggs in one basket. We need also too is don't only have one source for all of your materials. So I actually have, I have backup for things, and I have 2 different individuals that come in and service, and they do have all of the things to go ahead and service it. And one of the things that I've learned in my industry, and in particular in the industrial sewing machines, there's certain machines that are out there. I actually have one that is, I don't know how old it is, but it's a dinosaur. But they still have parts for that. And some people have machinery that they don't have any parts. So once the machine breaks, you're pretty much out. I fortunately always will, if I was to purchase another machine, I always ask, is there the parts that I need to do in the event that it breaks down, or how is the servicing and that thing. It's almost, you have to kind of think ahead. So I get this machine, not only what can it do for me, but how can I maintain it to work at the levels that I need for it to work when it's, when I do get that huge order.
Well, I guess maybe we can go over to Wayne, because Angie mentioned something about finding the right equipment. So maybe Wayne can talk about what the MEP National Network has to offer in terms of helping manufacturers find the equipment that they need.
Okay, thanks for that question. So like Wayne mentioned, right, MEP, we're the Manufacturer Extension Partnership Program. Innovate Hawaii is one of 51 national centers across the U.S. So we have an MEP center in each state, and we're very fortunate. Just happened 2 weeks ago that Congress passed the national budget that continues to support the MEP program. And basically, this was back in the Obama administration, where there was this whole movement for made in America products. And that's where a lot of the funds that we get for our Innovate Hawaii program comes through the Department of Commerce for this purpose. So when you talk about equipment and sourcing, one of the advantages that we have as a program is, again, we have 51 other sister brother centers across the U.S., right? So if there's a piece of equipment that you don't find here locally, or you're having problems locating where I could buy it, what we do is we have an intranet that we use for our MEP program. We'll post, you give us a description, hey, I'm looking for this brand, this model number. Does anybody know or have an idea of where I could get one or used one, new one? We'll post it out there. And more than likely, we'll get one or two pings back from other centers across the U.S. to say, hey, I had one of my clients, he just bought one of this, and this is the supplier. We come around and we give that information back to you. So one of the advantages is, again, we do have this network. You're not, and again, what I mentioned in the beginning, right? You're not alone, right? You have partners, you have friends, you have to utilize them. And for us, the network is a valuable resource that we market very heavily for our federal program. And, it's not just for equipment, it's for resources. Wayne was on the road for the last 2 weeks working with our sister center in Montana and Idaho, doing food assessments, doing equipment evaluation. So again, we as a center use our partners, our sister centers across the U.S. to bring in knowledge into the state. Because obviously we're small. We don't have the luxury of just driving to the next state and borrowing somebody and bringing them back here. It's not possible, right? So part of the service that we leverage is our network through the national program, again, for sourcing equipment, for sourcing expertise that is not locally available here. And a lot of the things that we do, that we provide services, are all industry experts that come from the mainland, that help us in food safety, in equipment sourcing. And I think, we've done a lot with equipment and looking at what's needed. Because again, you're a manufacturer, you think you know what you need. But again, it's a good idea sometimes to get somebody that's been in the industry that can say, hey, well, maybe you don't really need this big size of equipment or a mixer. You could really do with this little smaller one, or vice versa, right? You really need this bigger one to be more efficient. So again, let us know, ping Wayne or ping myself if you need help for equipment, sourcing equipment, or even consultants, because that's what we do. We leverage the national network.
Yeah, so we made it easy. Our names are both Wayne, so if you have any questions, contact Wayne. But for Blaine and Dylan, I mean, maybe you can share on how you found the right equipment, because I know you guys have equipment from overseas. What was that process like? And then if you have anything to share for the group here.
So I'm a very particular person. Things need to be a certain way. So we would manually slice our meat before. And I did one study, and we pushed the slicer back and forth 120,000 times in 1 month. So I said, in order to scale up, there's no way we're going to hire workers to do this at a larger scale. They're going to probably last for 5 years, and we're going to have to replace their arms. But it took a couple months researching online. Like I said, we were getting into an industry that nobody was doing at large scale. So there's no information available. You had to go find your own. So it took about, I'd say, 2 months back and forth on the internet, looking and calling companies about meat slicers. So I wanted to have an automatic meat slicer. And I wanted to plan for 5 or 10 years down the road. I didn't want to buy something for just now. I figured if we're going to invest all this money, we just buy a slicer that'll keep the product consistent. The quality will be the same. We found it's out of New Zealand. It currently slices, I think, like 38 slices a minute right now. It's probably almost the lowest setting it can go, and it'll go all the way up to 400 slices a minute. So our expansion, we can expand way more in the future. So when you order machines, plan ahead, do some research, find out the quality of it. So we actually flew to San Francisco, and in the beef jerky industry, nobody shares any ideas. Nobody tells you, nobody lets you in the back door. It's secret. So the machine was in North Carolina at a plant. They wouldn't let us in there. So the company flew the machine to San Francisco and got it into a plant there, the only company that would let us get in there. We tested it out there, really liked it. Didn't realize that the opening of the machine where the meat goes in is about a little over 4 inches thick. The meat we tested that day was about a little less than 4 inches thick, so it went through the machine. And when we got back home, it's something we overlooked. So then we had to make an adjustment. Now we had to trim the meat before we put it into the slicer. Whereas on the manual slicer, we dropped the whole big piece of meat and we slice away. So, I mean, really, really look into it. I mean, we got it down now, but still. And our marinator is actually, it was designed for baking. We took a machine designed for baking, worked with the engineer, redesigned it, and made it custom to our application. So if the money you spend on machine is well worth it. You don't pay unemployment insurance. You don't pay medical. They don't call in sick. They're always there. So that's the way I looked at it. Those two machines would make my product quality consistent till the end. So that's where we went.
We learned some really valuable lessons in the beginning because we were so strapped for cash. I looked at how much chocolate I could make, how much we'd need to sell, and then bought lots of little grinders instead of one big one because it was half the cost. So let's say it was $3,000 to buy 10 small grinders, or it was $3,000 to buy, $6,000 to buy one big one. I was like, oh, sweet, I'm going to save $3,000. That was one of the worst decisions I ever made. And at the time, that was a lot of money. So yeah, that was painful because they were always breaking. They were not made for what I was trying to commercially do with them. And the amount of time it took to load one small grinder, say it did 5 pounds, was about the same amount of time it took to load a 50-pound grinder. And then I had 10 of them. So my time, I never valued my time. And we have first world labor here. So right after that, as we kind of pulled out of this, I always buy equipment that's way bigger than we need because I know we'll grow into it, which is reassuring. And that, yeah, you don't have to pay medical and workers' comp, and all you have to do is make sure that it's maintained. So I really went for bigger equipment, and that's why we've been able to scale up and approach bigger accounts. So we went from 5-pound grinders to 50-pound grinders, and the problem with this is this type of grinder took 3 or 4 days to refine the chocolate and the sugar. So we were never really able to, we could keep adding these 50-pound grinders, which a lot of companies do, but they're stone grinders, so we call it the Stone Age. We wanted to exit the Stone Age and be able to sell in, say, every Whole Foods in America if the opportunity came up. And so we went to a machine that was probably about 60,000 euros. So from a $10,000 grinder to a $60,000 or $75,000 grinder. But we can now do 120 kilos, so 250 pounds almost, in 3 hours. And it wasn't that much more expensive in the big picture. And so now all of a sudden, we can make better chocolate faster. And so that's just a good example of using equipment to scale up. I'm always, yes?
Can you tell us about the bicycle?
Yeah. Well, when we were first starting, there was not small-scale chocolate equipment. And so we watched a lot of YouTube videos on how you de-shell the cacao bean. And the concept is simple. The shell is light, the nib is heavy. So we need to get nibs, which is what we make chocolate out of, and the shell needs to be separated because it's too fibrous. And so we watched YouTube videos on things like coffee and rice and grains, which are all winnowed. It's just using airflow to separate the chaff or the shell. And so we mostly copied coffee. And what we did is we hooked a little bicycle up, because I didn't understand how motors worked at the time, and I was like, I'm not going to buy a motor and try and hook this up. So I took a kid bicycle and screwed the training wheels into the floor and took a car belt and stretched it onto the front from the bottom tire to the top and hooked that front wheel up to a cracking device that I made out of PVC and plywood. And so as we pedaled the bicycle, which we had slippers zip-tied on the pedals to keep our feet on, the pedals are really small. As we pedaled, it spun this cracking device, and we had a back massager duct-taped onto a metal tray. And so when I turned this back massager on, it would vibrate our cacao beans at a constant flow, which is really important, into the cracking device that was pedal powered, and everything would start to fall in little pieces. Because think of crushing almonds. Cacao seeds look like almonds. And so as all this shell and nib start falling down, we had a shop vac, a vacuum, hooked up to a bucket. And this bucket had a PVC pipe coming out of it and hooked up to the cracking device. So as everything was falling, if it was light, it got sucked up into the bucket. And if it was heavy, it continued to fall. And we used this little bicycle winnowing machine for like 4 or 5 years. The only real scale up was when we went and got rid of the bicycle after, say, 2.5 years and got a drill. So we could turn the drill on and keep it on, and we could walk away for a little bit. And we added a hopper. But yeah, we used that for a long time. And this is how I met our engineer, who became, he also has a share of the company now. He used to work for Kraft Foods, and he came on this tour, and he goes, "Oh my God, I can so help you," because he saw me pedaling the bike, and I was like, "What? What's wrong?" But having somebody who knows equipment as you grow, like you guys don't even know what you don't know. I will never know as much as I don't ever want to know as much as he knows. So it's rare to find people who know about manufacturing here. So. Good resources. Take advantage. Let's see. The other thing is, once again, like with packaging, I found a company that I trusted and talked to for a while and just got a really good vibe, and that's who we bought our equipment from, and they're wonderful. Anything that goes wrong, boom, part on the way. From Italy, overnight if they can, as fast as possible to keep us going. And so we started looking at like what kind of spare parts do we need to have on hand, because if it's coming from Italy or they have to get it from somewhere else, you can't have too much downtime. It just becomes more and more important as you grow. So find a company that you like. Try and talk to other companies that are a bit bigger, because they'll understand your scale so much better and where you're at and what you're going through. And they can then be the best consultants, better than somebody who is much bigger because they can't relate to you. So try and find the companies that are a bit bigger that just exited your phase. They'll probably have the best advice for you for equipment, for accounts, that kind of thing.
Quick question, online question is, how do you define equipment? Meaning, if you're, let's say, a graphic designer or a website company, your equipment is computers and servers and that kind of thing, not necessarily shellers and slicers and all of that. So is there anything available in a MEP program with that kind of a business?
Yeah, so we'll, in the next slides, I think we'll go over the MAP grant. So just stay tuned. But I'd like to pull out some of the things that Blaine and Dylan said. So I think both of you mentioned that you guys needed to go out and see the equipment. So that was like going to shows or going into a factory to see how the actual equipment works. And also, I think what Blaine said about, he overlooked something. And then how Dylan said that, it's good to have someone that has the industry experience. So we've done a couple of packaging seminars in the past. We work with a guy named Bill Scott. Both of these guys met Bill Scott, and he's known for packaging and processing equipment. So the things that one of the things that he told me is that you can automate anything you want, but the thing is, the more custom it is, the more expensive it's going to be. So everything that Dylan described, the vibrating, to get the shells off and everything, there's machines that can do that, but depending on how much you want to spend, there's some things that won't be fully automated. So just throwing it out there. If you guys have any packaging questions or anything you guys are interested in, bottling, filling, material handling, that type of thing, we have a guy that we can connect you with, and he's real good about finding something that will meet your needs and your budget. Yep. Any other questions on the equipment side?
Another thing with the equipment. When I first started to scale up, I had I forget the brand. Let's say it's an Excalibur. That dehydrator would take about 10 to 12 hours to do a batch of jerky. I did some research, found a different dehydrator, and got that down to about 5.5 hours. So when you're looking for equipment, look for something that's really efficient. that'll cut your processing, your production time in whatever it is. It doesn't have to be food manufacturing, but just keep in mind that there's always something that'll do it faster and better, but it's just a matter of the money. But if you keep searching, you'll find something that'll work right into your budget, and they'll do an awesome job.
I guess just one more thing, because Blaine reminded me of it. So as a company startup, you're starting from, like, again, another food example, starting up in your kitchen or your garage, something real small using household appliances. The next step would probably be, in the progression, would be go towards, commercial kitchen equipment. But if you're really looking to scale up, for large volumes, like even on the sewing side, a household sewing machine wouldn't work because it's made for, intermittent use. It's not made to go full blast 24 hours if you needed to. That's where having an equipment specialist comes in handy, because they're the ones that know about industrial equipment for manufacturing. Because like I've seen in the past week when I visited a couple of facilities, they're on the commercial kitchen scale. They're looking to scale up, but sometimes their idea of scaling up is to buy more commercial equipment. Some ways it's good, depending on your current situation, but I would always recommend, if you're looking to scale up, look towards something more industrial, because some of the things that you'll probably overlook is, having more commercial size, like what Dylan mentioned, more of the small grinders. Yeah, electricity costs. And then, like we talked about earlier, space in your facility, that's a premium. The more smaller stuff you have, it'll take up more floor space when you can just have one piece of equipment that's made for whatever you're trying to do. So,
I got something to add to that.
One of the things that forced us to grow was actually running out of electricity. So as you buy equipment, it's power hungry. And so depending on your power supply, so we initially started with 600 square feet. We ran out of electricity, not so much space. And so then we had to take over the suite next to us. We had twice as much space. Great, we filled it up. Great, we used all the power again. That happened, and then we had to start looking at three-phase equipment. So if you start getting industrial equipment, you need three-phase power, which our building didn't have. And then we really use a lot of energy. And it's not all that expensive in the bigger picture when you look at your financial statement. It's just you need a lot of it when you run bigger machines. So, in fact, I was just talking to Honolulu Cookie. They bought a machine and they overlooked the one thing of electricity, because they cannot bring enough power into their building for this machine. So don't underestimate what you're going to need. So right now, for our new factory we're going to be moving into, we're looking at bringing in an extra 250 amps just to make sure that we can grow into it. And that might not be enough, but by then it's probably time to leave.
All right, Rob. Yeah, let's over to the next slide. So, keep on track a little bit. But so we're going to talk about the manufacturing assistance program. So what this is, it's a reimbursement grant from the state of Hawaii. It's administered by Innovate Hawaii, run through the Hawaii Technology Development Corporation, for fiscal year 18. So state fiscal year, which started July 1st last year, and it ends June 30th this year. So state fiscal year, the state legislator appropriated $1 million in funding. And again, it's up to 20% of qualified manufacturing expenses. For this fiscal year, anything that was purchased on or after July 1st, 2015 would still qualify. The minimum grant amount is $1,500. The maximum grant amount is $100,000, and it's one grant per company per year. Again, so I mean the purpose of this grant, again verbatim from the administrative rules, is for specific activities relating to manufacturing that results in economic and employment growth in Hawaii. So again, that's the thing that when you're filling out the application, which we'll give you a link to a little bit, and maybe Wayne can mention the current status of the fiscal year 19 bill. Rob, maybe go to the next slide. So I mentioned qualified manufacturing expenses. I think this relates to the question that was asked online. Again, this is a manufacturing grant, so it is for manufacturers. you will need to be categorized as a manufacturer in order to be eligible for the grant. Qualified expenses fall into 4 categories. First one would be the purchase of manufacturing equipment. Second one is training on the use of manufacturing equipment. So this can include flying in a trainer from the vendor to do the training here locally, or if you need to send some of your employees out to the vendor location to do training there. Those expenses could potentially qualify. See me or see A. Wayne. If you have any questions, we can go more into detail. The third one would be energy efficiency projects in your manufacturing area. So, for example, LED lighting would be considered an energy efficient retrofit for your manufacturing. If you do LED lighting in your office, that wouldn't qualify. Okay, so that type of thing. We get a question all the time about solar, PV. PV is considered energy generation, not so much energy efficiency. So PV solar wouldn't qualify for manufacturing grant funds. The last one would be studying or planning a new manufacturing facility. So for Dylan's case, if he hires someone to do a study for his expansion, that could potentially qualify for reimbursement also. Some of the things we'll need for that is, the results of the study, and then, pretty much the scope of work for the contractor. So this doesn't include construction, because construction is more facilities costs, but for studying, if it's feasible to go into that new space, that'd be something that we're looking at. Rob, next slide. This is just, just a real quick, line by line item of some of the eligibility requirements of the MAP grant. So again, manufacturing in the state, you need to be categorized as a manufacturer. So like the question that they asked, if they're a graphic designer, generally their NAICS code would not be in one of those 31, 32, or 33 categories. So they would not be eligible for manufacturing grant funding. You need a Duns and Bradstreet number. If you don't have one already, you can contact us. We can help you set up that number for free. And also, if awarded, one of the terms is that you'll own and operate the manufacturing equipment for a minimum of 2 years. This is, again, to prevent anyone from buying and selling stuff and taking advantage of the grant program. Number 5 is we do ask for company financials. We do ask you that you mark it confidential. This is used by the MAP review committee to determine, the viability of the business and, determine the risk in, the risk level. And also, lastly, register to do business in the state. So this includes having your certificate of good standing and your tax clearance up to date. Okay. And then the next slide is the link to the online application. So again, we are still in the fiscal year 18 funding cycle. Maybe this is a good time to go over to Wayne, and we can talk about FY19 and its current status.
Yeah, so for FY18, as Wayne mentioned, we did run out of funds for FY18. We did get $1 million that we did disperse to local manufacturers, and again, we are in our last review period for our last set of applications, but we will run out of funds for FY18. Coming up for FY19, we still have not received any funds yet for FY19. I encourage you, if you're a manufacturer, to call your state legislator to say, I'm a manufacturer, I need your help to support the manufacturing grant because I want to be a recipient of that grant. State legislators want to hear from you as a manufacturer. Again, this is an economic development grant. They want to grow the industry here in Hawaii. They want to see companies grow. They want to see you export. They want to see you make more product. They want to see you hire more employees. It's an economic development grant. It's not a charity grant, right? So as Wayne mentioned, in this application, there are specific questions of what are you going to do with this grant, with this machinery? What are you going to do? Are you going to do more products? How many people are you going to employ, right? So again, it's an economic development grant that we report back the results every year to state legislators because they're the ones that actually fund this grant. It's not us, right? So again, if you are a manufacturer, I highly encourage you to call your state representative or senator to say, hey, I need your help. I need you to help support the MAP grant because without their support, right now, we have no funding for FY19. Again, we don't know what's going to come down. We think that we'll be okay. We'll get another $1 million for FY19. But again, nothing's done until it's done, right? I think all of you know that. Until things get signed, the governor signs, we don't know. So again, that's the current status. Again, the only thing you can do is, again, help call your state representative or senator to help support, and knock on wood, hopefully we'll get another set of funds for FY19.
So I mean, thinking about timing, yeah, because I know we're running a little bit over, but if you have any questions about the grant, you can see either Wayne, you can talk to Blaine and Dylan. They've been recipients of MAP grant funding, so they can tell you about how it was on their end to do the application and the award process, that type of thing. Maybe Rob, you can go on to the last topic, which is workforce. So I mean, successful hiring and retention of skilled workforce. You know, not enough good workers. I hear that all the time. And then, so 2 ways that you can go about it. You can improve from within. You know, train your workers to move up into higher levels, or I mean, just to be real, or steal from other companies, because there's a limited workforce in the island. So you either improve from within or steal. So, question for the manufacturers: how did you guys find the right people?
Well, you call up Wayne and you tell him your sad story that you need help, and you kind of reach out to other designers. But let me tell you, well, there's one thing in my industry. We don't share our source of who does our sewing for us. There's such a very, very limited amount of sewing contractors that are here in the state. And unfortunately, they really focus on the Aloha shirt and the muumuu and those type of things. So when I come in with a specialty product like it was my travel blanket, it was something out of the realm of their production. It was almost like I had to teach them how it was. So I utilized sewing contractors for a good portion of the time until 2016, when I started just doing my own custom designs and working at kind of streamlining, because it was really hard, because my product is currently engineered cut, which means that each one is exactly the same. So I can't take it to my cutter who he does cut my other goods, you know, my lining or things that are not engineered cut, and he'll do those. But the other stuff. So what I had to do was really kind of go out there and ask people, you know, do they have anybody who knows how to sew? And so I actually have 3 1099 sewing contractors that work for me, but they work from their home, or they come into my workshop and they help me with production. And it seems that it's okay, but if I want to take my business to the next level and I want it to scale up, I've even looked at partnering with another designer and opening up a facility that we kind of share these sewing contractors, you know, but then it came to all of the details that we really didn't just kind of pan out. I mean, the foreign trade zone also has places where you can actually, you know, rent as a manufacturer. You're making Hawaii-made products, and it's the lease rent is very inexpensive in comparison, so it's actually a really good place. But I feel very comfortable, and I'm able to work out of my 2-car garage, because like I always say, you know, the greatest things come out of American garages, and, you know, like Amazon and Disney and Apple and all those good things. So one day I'll have that breakthrough. But in the meantime, I do have my 1099 contractors that I work with. I've worked with Wayne on a program that we were hoping that was going to be kind of almost like a breakthrough. Unfortunately, that kind of went a way that we really didn't want it to be. But fortunately with Wayne, because of his expertise in manufacturing, and he knows, and he's worked with a lot of people in my industry, and your parents had a manufacturing? Yeah, so he has a lot of expertise. He knows what it is that we need. And he is really trying to spearhead many of the different programs out there to help us because it is a dying trend. There's a lot of people who don't want to sew. They don't like that hard labor. And if you do get a sewing contractor or company that can help you, it's now, quality, and then it's just higher cost, which affects your margins and all that other kind of good things. So for me, the way that I'm doing it now, and it's been successful for me in my production and how I'm working. So it's working. It's doing okay. I'm okay with it.
As far as us, it is very hard to find good workers by far. When you have a good worker, you train them, you keep them, you're going to have to pay them well. So when you're looking to scale up, you got to factor that in because they're almost like a skilled worker. I mean, it's hard to they're not just the regular pineapple picking people in the fields anymore. I mean, there's a lot more, in manufacturing, there's a lot more that goes on behind the scenes that they need to know, especially with food, the food safety side. I mean, so there is a lot to look at too when you're hiring workers. You're going to go through them. I mean, you'll probably hire, last year I think we went through 10 people and saved 2 of the 10, kept 2 of the 10. But I mean, because your production is based off of them coming to work, them being efficient, and them doing their job. So, but you spend all that time training them, you paying them while you're training them, and then they're gone. So it's a real struggle to get workers. I mean, as much as possible, I hate to say it, but we try to get more machines to do the work. But there comes a point where you got to get workers. And what they're looking at increasing, or did they increase the minimum wage? So that'll throw another wrench in the mix too. So other than that, workers it's hard to come by. Can't replace yourself.
We're always trying to get machines to replace workers, but something interesting happens. You end up hiring more people. I kind of don't understand that too well, but that's what's happened. In the beginning, this wasn't exactly legal, but my younger brother was about 14, and all his friends would come in and make chocolate, and I'd buy them surfboards. So, but that didn't last too long. As we've grown, we have a certain amount of people that are hired, and then when we need extra help, they'll call their friends in. Their friends will help. Depending on how busy we are, they keep helping. We say, you know what? You were good. You should stay. If you'd like, you can have a job. And oftentimes they're going, wow, this place is great. I'd love to work here. And that kind of just builds on itself. If someone can't cut it, we don't offer that again. We don't call them back. It's becoming less and less of an issue as we grow to find good workers because a certain standard has been set. Like I try and hold myself to the very highest level, which just like gets passed down. And if someone can't hack it, they're gone. Or they're put on the less optimal shifts to the point where they just leave. But yeah, hiring people, it kind of sucks. It's not very fun. It's really expensive. I still don't understand why we have to pay additionally when we hire people. I don't understand that. It's not good incentive. But that's the way it is. So, yeah, that's.
Do you have a product quality problem when you just bring workers in as you need them?
If we don't pay enough attention. So there always has to be a certain amount of staff that has been there. Otherwise, we do have problems. Like just the other day, we got spread way too thin. People were on vacation and out sick. And so we have about 20 people we work with, and 5 of them were gone. 4 of them are full-time. And so that was really challenging. So we had a whole bunch of bars that came out, and I'm really particular. I want one of our bars, our best sellers, is called our breakfast bar, and it's got nibs and coffee sprinkled on top. Well, I like every bite to have the same amount of nibs and coffee, but it's done by hand. And so when you're trying to do a couple thousand bars in a day, whoever's doing that, if they haven't been doing it a while, you're going to have a lot of nibs on one part of the bar and a lot of coffee in another, and it's not going to taste right. And that makes me upset. So we end up chopping those up as samples if we can. Otherwise, it's a loss. And so this is just something that you can't be everywhere at once. You just have to hope that whoever is in charge is paying attention to that and they're not spread too thin. So just to always try and have this hierarchy of people who know what's going on and what is expected. Yeah, that was a recent problem.
Yeah, so my 2 cents on the whole workforce thing. I mean, Blaine mentioned that he can't do all the work himself. Dylan mentioned, standards, and then thank you, Brenda, for bringing up quality. So from a manufacturing consultant side, one of the things that I would advise small manufacturers to do is to start standardizing your processes. So do a process flow, make up SOPs. So these food guys got it because they're required to do it by the FDA. They have a food safety plan and SOPs to back up the food safety plan. But for other industries, it's good to have that standardized process, something that's repeatable, something that that you can train easily whenever you're onboarding new people, something that you can read, and again, to reduce the non-value added time, because training, is your customer willing to pay you more so you can train your employees? No, they pay you for your product. So if you can reduce the amount of time to train, that'll give you more time to make, again, more value added activity.
Something else that's kind of interesting is I wanted to make chocolate, but as we grow, I'm almost making no chocolate. I'm getting pushed to other areas that I need to do, whether it's administration or networking or working on a farm project or setting up the new factory. So as you grow, you may love what you're doing, but someone else is going to end up doing it. That's just the nature of it. The other thing is the MAP grant. Oh my God, that is the best grant we've ever received. And it's perfect because it's 20%, right? So you still have to pay 80%. So 20% is a really nice incentive, but you then get the equipment and a chunk of money back to continue operating, and it usually just comes at the perfect time. So yeah, the MAP grant is amazing.
I just want to touch on the bottom line of scaling up. Last year I spent the whole year trying to put out fires. It grew so fast. We were just constantly chasing to keep up with it, and slowly things started falling off from the bottom. So my suggestion to you guys would be put systems in place. I mean, we would show up to package one morning and we don't have any bags. We ran out of bags, so now I got to go down to the local store and just use clear bags. So set the foundation. That's my word for the day, I would say. I learned the hard way, like any other person starting a business. That's the only way you learn, by making errors. But if I can pass it on to you guys, I would say set the foundation, get the structure strong, and then you can build from there. Because we built and our legs fell out. It's a learning experience. But yeah.
I just wanted to add about the quality control. In my product, I'm always designing new items to add to my collection. And I had recently made, and I have 3 very skilled sewing contractors. I mean, they worked for sewing contractors and they left for whatever reason and they work from their home. But they're very, very skilled. So when I come out and I design a product, I have to think of them in mind, thinking that what's easy for me might not be easy for them. So I really look at designing it. So I had thought that I had made in the design process and then during the production, I thought I had made a clear way of communicating to them on how to do it. And product came in and I was so rushed to get out the orders because I use social media to promote my business. It's been a godsend, and I do that for my Japanese clients as well as local and then the U.S. or whatever. So I always will make an item, throw it out on social media just to put out some feelers to see how it was. And next thing I know, I was getting all these orders. People were asking for it. So I had my sewing contractor go ahead and sew them, and so rushed to get out the order that I had failed to do a quality control check on it, and it happened to be on a strap. And fortunately, it was one of my very loyal customers, a very good friend, who sent me a message and she said, "Hey, Angie, you know, my strap came off of my packing cube." So I was like, "Oh, okay, I'm so sorry about that." And there's one thing that I can't compete against price on some of these different manufacturers, but I'm going to kill them and I can compete with them on my customer service. I pride myself to the utmost, the highest level on my customer service, and I really take care of my customer. So of course, I apologize for, the error. I wasn't aware of it. I could have said it was my sewing contractor, but I said, no, that was my error. I took the responsibility. She says, "That's okay, Angie. It happens." And I said, "Here, let me go ahead and get the product back to you." And with that comes additional free products to kind of get that, let them know. I then went back to the other 200 items that were sewn, and all of them were sewn incorrectly. So just like for them, they have to go over there and check the quality, whether it's the quality of the taste and everything, and ours is just the quality of the function. Got to go through that extra step and checking that, because could you imagine if I sent it to one of my big retailers and that all of them had, come back? So that was a really recent problem, because it was a design default, defect on there. There was an extra step that I failed to communicate. So again, it's just making sure that the simplest item, and you think that I'm either making a travel bag or a pouch or whatever it is, quality control is so essential. It's fabric, it's sewn, so it can, come apart. So hard learning lesson.
Does anyone have any? Oh, quite a bit.
I'm not sure. I don't remember who was doing food manufacturing or scaling up to that of you guys, but we just recently purchased equipment to make our own on-site food lab. Like what she said, she has great customer service. She went back. She did what she had to do. In like what we do, every day you produce product, and then there's one day something goes wrong. Just imagine you got to buy back all that product that you just sold up until the last date that it was lab tested. So if you don't test periodically, just make sure that you have somebody in control of the quality, that's checking quality, that's making sure every step of the way was done the right way in order to make it safe. This those big recalls you hear on the TVs about, like that Blue Bunny. I mean, they shut companies down. Those big multi-million-dollar companies just fall apart right there instantly, because they can't afford to buy all that product back. So that's one thing to keep in mind when you're talking about quality.
Any questions?
Yeah, just final questions. Pretty much closing remarks. Sales increases can both be a blessing and a curse, right, for unprepared manufacturers undergoing growth. So if you have, like what Wayne mentioned earlier, if you have any questions or you need any help, you have people in Hawaii that can help you with some of the challenges that you're facing. Just Wayne, you have anything to say? Yeah.
Again, I'll just repeat myself again, is, make sure, again, you make friends, you get to know what organizations are available to you as resources in Hawaii. And one thing that we didn't talk about, I think, in the financial, and I can talk about it, or maybe we can have Lyle talk about it, is how many of you heard about the enterprise zone? Right, if you are a manufacturer and you are really looking to relocate, or you could already be in an enterprise zone and not know it, you really could take an advantage. And Lyle, can I just bother you to maybe just talk about that real quick? Because it is really important as a manufacturer to understand what the enterprise zone does.
Thanks, Wayne. Yeah, we were, I think the question was about incentives that Rob had online. But this Enterprise Zones is a state-county partnership program. We really do support manufacturers, a lot of ag companies. There are other industries as well, but primarily it's about job creation. And so for throughout the state on different islands, you will have these zones. And like Wayne was saying, you may be located in one already. So we have I don't have any brochures today, but you can come see me if you're interested. I'll send you the information. It's on our website. Essentially, it's a GT waiver for your wholesale activity. It is only for 51% of your revenue has to be wholesale, and you can have other incentives as well as premiums, tax credits for your unemployment insurance, et cetera. And then the counties may have some incentives as well, so depending on where you're located. But definitely look at that as it's a great program, and I think a lot of people are in that already. Different point or question actually to you guys, so separate to enterprise zones. Working with Department of Labor or Seating County on workforce development, job training, you guys connected with them, integrated, or?
So what we've done, thanks, Laf. So what we've done and what we're currently doing, and again, like Angie mentioned, workforce has been at least one of the top 3 main stumbling block for manufacturers. We did an assessment 8 years ago, and it was like number 3. We're doing it again, but I'm pretty sure it's still like one of the top 5 issues. We've done multiple attempts to work and try and find solutions for workforce. But one of the things that we're currently doing, and it's still in process, is we're working with the Department of Labor to do an apprenticeship program. And again, way back when we had trade schools, we had a lot of specialized technical schools for the shipyard and for certain things. And unfortunately, they've kind of disappeared over the last 5 to 10 years. And in partnership with the Department of Labor, we're trying to bring that back, but put the learning back into the company. And again, we haven't really figured out all the mechanics of how it is. We're kind of doing betas right now. But, through the Department of Labor, they have offered some funds to help companies to retool. We're calling it retool. So you as an employer will be given some money to send your employees to training. So we've done a couple in factory automation. We've done some in PLC training that really helps to skill up your workers. And basically what that does is it gives you as an employer the confidence that you're going to train your staff to become better skilled in things that they were not skilled in before, so that they can really stay with you, because you're going to have to pay them a little bit more money because they have new skills now. But hopefully those are the people that you want to keep on staff, right? Because they're probably the backbone of your company to help with fixing machines or to doing whatever they need to do. So again, yes, we are working with Department of Labor. We haven't really figured out all the bells and whistles of how this, because right now they have apprenticeship programs in the hotel industry, IT, and I think medical. We've kind of went in and knocked on their door saying, hey, we really need some help in manufacturing, and they kind of just squeeze us in. So we don't really have the real curriculum yet of the manufacturing apprenticeship program, and we will get that out to everybody. But again, it's a good program where you take that training into your facility, or we have a partnership with Leeward Community College to do some things that we cannot do or you can't do within your facility. So again, stay tuned to that. And again, we are working, like Angie said, for some other things. We're currently trying to see if we can work with the Veterans Association. What we're also trying to do is try to get into the high schools at an earlier stage, because again, fortunate or unfortunate, not all of our high school graduates go on to college. A lot of them have to go into the workforce, right? And if we can give them some skills, whether it's sewing, whether it's food safety, whether it's general manufacturing practice, they can go into a job. I'm pretty sure that many of you would hire them if they had the skills, and if they're good people, they're dedicated to work. Those are the people that you want to hire, because then you can train them. I kind of say we can mold them to what you need them to do. So again, that's just another way of us trying to figure out how we address the workforce issues. And if any of you have any suggestions of how we address this, please let us know, because we've been working, and I think it's not just us, I think all of our partners, workforce always comes up. So, again, we're open to any suggestions, any hookups you can give us to anything to, help your neighbor, because again, it's not just you, it's everybody that's having this workforce issue. So, yeah. Yes. Rob, any other questions or?
There's nothing online. Any final questions, everybody? There's some over here.
I was just wondering if there is a manufacturer for solar energy storage, like battery.
Not locally, because that's the process to make that. You'll need a big factory, similar to how they make semiconductors, depending on the battery storage technology. Yeah, but we have, like I said, we have our network. I'm pretty sure they make that like somewhere in Nevada, somewhere maybe, because that's where they're building the new facilities that we could connect you with if you're interested. Yeah, not locally.
Any other questions? Yes, in the back.
Yeah, so just to repeat the question. The question was, have any of you used YouTube for workforce training?
As far as making a video and putting it on there, or using YouTube to train the workers? Yeah, we actually created our own with a GoPro, and we just saved it on the computer. So to me, that's the best way. I don't know how you guys do yours. No, yeah. But yeah, there's a lot on YouTube. I know. But specifically to what we do, yeah, we had to create our own for safety and for operational.
So I have two questions. Going back to equipment, I have two questions. So for those of you that bought your equipment from the mainland or outside Hawaii, how do those equipment get serviced in general?
Yeah, so the question is to repeat for the people on our island, for manufacturers that buy equipment off the island, like from the mainland or overseas, how do you service the equipment?
So what we did with ours, the equipment we bought, when they came down to train, they also brought a bunch. It was in the deal when we bought the machine. They supplied us with a bunch of spare parts and gave us some training on how to fix all that stuff. So basically, we fix our own stuff. Our big slicing machine is actually connected via the internet to the company out in New Zealand, so they can go in and check the programming and see if something's wrong. We had an issue when we first brought it. They sent somebody over the next day to come and help us. But other than that, training for the equipment is make sure you buy them and you got some good support. That's what we wanted to make sure.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Make sure that they will always answer your phone calls so that you can keep it operational. We do all our own maintenance. We take those things apart all the time, whether it's cleaning or fixing or replacing parts. But the main companies that we work with are just there for us. We can call them and they'll answer, they'll send out parts. It'll often cost you something depending on the company you're working with, but we do it. Yeah.
I guess the second part is for those of you without an engineering house, have you ever needed someone to custom fabricate a piece of equipment?
We started working on that early this year and we're putting it off till next year, but the chocolate package that we have is not traditional, so the machines that we could buy are not going to work for us. So we have to custom manufacture a piece of equipment with a company in Italy that would do this with us. It's fortunate that I have an engineer because I would not know where to start with that one. But other than the bicycle-powered machine, and that's where my skills end.
To touch on that first question real quick. Shucks, I just went blank. That's something about the machine.
Custom building.
Oh, so what I did when we bought the machine, when the machines came in, I had our local appliance repair guy that fixes food equipment come with us and train with us. Paid him to come for the day with the text from the from New Zealand and whatnot. That way, when something goes wrong, I can call on him. We both were trained the same way, and he can fix it. Because I'm not gonna be there every time to fix it, but at least he knows what's going on. He's in contact with them. He has a better understanding. That's all he does all day is fix equipment. So that'll be a good idea for you guys. As far as custom stuff, yeah, I just made a prototype of a. It's a oversized French fry scooper, basically. So it's like it's a funnel. I mean, you tend to make your own stuff, adapt to what you need it to do, and then I made it out of cardboard with using my daughter's hot glue gun, and took it to the sheet metal guys, and they pulled it off.
Yeah, we often are adding on to the machines, and so cardboard's amazing. You can build almost anything out of it. We're constantly like, if you come into our factory right now, you're going to see cardboard contraptions duct taped and zip tied onto very expensive machines, and then we'll go to a welder and get it made in metal after it's been, all flushed out with how it needs to work. Yeah, Lyle.
With regards to customizing, is that something that Colin can help with?
Yeah, so we have one of our providers, his name is Colin Kobayashi, he's from 3D Innovations. He's actually in our building at the Mano Innovation Center. He has a 3D printer. I think all of you kind of know about 3D printing. And what Colin does is he does prototyping for probably one-off, so I don't think he's into the mass production. But if you need something that's done, that's one-off, a good contact would be Colin, and we can send you his information. What he also can do is he's a CAD expert. So he can take a piece and he can do a CAD drawing using, I don't know, some fancy software to do a 3D image. And that's what normally you would need to do to send it to the mainland to get it manufactured if it's not done here. So, yeah, that's a good resource again, is Colin Kobayashi.
He's the only person here really who
Yeah.
his thing, right? He wants to get the idea to the.
Right. And Colin has been, he's really good. So again, his name is Colin Kobayashi, 3D Innovations. You can email one of the Waynes and we can send you his email address. Good. Thanks, La.
Question from Maui. We are starting to research putting together a production facility that leverages cutting-edge regenerative energy and waste management, or zero waste. We'd appreciate any help or resource that can help us educate ourselves on best practices around the world. Does the state have any grants or help specifically earmarked for low-impact sustainable manufacturing?
Not that we know of. I mean, I think, and again, I'm not too sure. I can check with our partners from DBED, but Department of Energy, I'm not too sure if they have any programs, but through manufacturing, we do not have anything at this time, unless.
You may want to check with Elemental Accelerator, if they're ready for that. I'm not sure what, if they're qualified, but they can just look it up. Elemental Accelerator is an accelerator program, and so maybe, at least talk to them. And, there's not a whole lot on the web, I think.
Yeah.
You have to probably contact them and see.
Is there a HTDC Innovate Hawaii person on Maui? Or did they
Unfortunately, we don't have a contact right now, so it'd be either one of the Waynes for contact on Maui.
Or they could throw in another Wayne there at HTDC.
Yeah, you can throw it at Wayne, I forgot, Wayne Wong, yeah.
Wayne Wong.
Yeah. But again, unfortunately, energy generation, I think to your point too, is not considered manufacturing, unfortunately. Yeah, the battery itself would probably qualify if you're making but unfortunately here, we don't have those types of company. Yeah, they're out there, guarantee, right? You've got, yeah. Any other questions? No? All right, so I guess to wrap up again, I just want to thank our hosts, the HiSTEP team, and also DBED, and also Rob and his staff for helping us and putting all your treats this morning. And also our panelists, Dylan, Blaine, and Angie, for coming and spending their time away from their manufacturing facility to be with us this morning and share their knowledge. And again, you know, I highly talk to these guys because these are people that have actually gone through probably what you're going to go through within the next year if you're thinking about exporting or expanding your business. And also thanks to my partner in crime, the other Wayne, for help moderating the panel this morning. But thank you again for coming this morning. If you have any questions, we will be around. Our friends from DBED, and I think Joe had already, our SBDC friends, they have left. But again, Joe, again, perfect contact. And I don't see Dave, but if we do see Dave from FTZ, we'll let you know, and he will be another good contact for the facility. But again, thank you very much, Rob. Thank you again, and all of our friends on the neighbor islands.
Thank you, everybody.